in 2007. And I also did a certification program right there in the person-centered approach, and it was done in 2008. During this time, I was working in hospitals, clinics, with a lot of families, with a lot of individuals in chronic pain. So I get a little bit of a certification in hypnosis, but this was all in Brazil. In 2014, we came to the United States, and then I couldn't do it anymore. I need to come back to study again. And I think this is the main reason I'm here today with this team. So that's all, Liz.
Yeah, thank you for sharing a little bit of your history. So let's get into the topic of overcoming intergenerational conflict in Latino families. When we talk about this topic, what are we actually talking about? What does that mean?
Yeah, we're talking about families, like my family, who came here to the US. So I'm considered a first generation immigrant here, and I've been raising my kids in here. So we are talking about these differences, these cultural differences that will appear in my environment, not only about the environment, but about our communicational process between me and my kids. Yeah, so it involves my expectations, the expectations I have about my culture, my plans for them, and how this is going to be affected by entering a new culture with different purposes, with a different mindset, in a different age too. So we're dealing with a lot of intergenerational things, not only the cultural, but the ones that were supposed to be there just because of ages, different ages in society, but more add to that, everything that comes with a new culture and the adaptation process.
Yeah, it sounds really tough because I know that generationally, even between I don't know, myself, a natural born American, right? Uh, Generationally, there's differences between the generations that are very young now and then maybe my grandparents, right? And the values that we have or the things that we think are acceptable. So then pile on top of that the cultural conflict or the cultural difference. So it sounds pretty complex. Uh, what countries are included when we talk about Latino families?
Yeah, I think it's easy to talk about the countries. It's not so easy to differentiate what is Latino and Hispanic. So I'm
Okay.
gonna give you a glance in both of them. So when we're talking about the countries, we can consider all the countries from North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. So let's think about Mexico from North America, Guatemala from Central America, Caribbean. We can think about Cuba and Dominican Republic. And when we talk about South America, we can think about Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Bolivia, and in all of that, everything that they have in common is the language. Yeah, they are Spanish speakers, but Brazil is not. So our colonizers, they came from Portugal, so we speak Portuguese.
Mhm.
And that's the difference I would say. I was explaining about being Latino and not Hispanic, but
Mhm.
Hispanic and not Latino. When I'm in a doctor's appointment office and I have to mark there if I am Hispanic or Latino, thank God now they already put both in there, both options in there. But when I came here like 11 years ago, no, it was one or the other. And sometimes we didn't have the other. We only had one option and we were not there. So Brazil is a little bit different. We don't speak Spanish, we speak Portuguese, but we are part of these Latino countries.
Yeah, so everybody who's Latino is everybody who's Hispanic is Latino, but everybody who's Latino is not necessarily Hispanic, because like a
Yeah,
Brazilian is not Hispanic. So
yeah,
yeah, so it
exactly.
can be super confusing. Super
Yeah,
confusing. Yeah,
yeah.
so then what type of conflict? So now we clarified like what do we mean, which population are we talking about? Then what type of conflicts would we be talking about when we're discussing intergenerational problems?
I we're talking. I think the primary conflicts would be about language barriers. Yeah,
Mhm.
because even with us, with the Portuguese speakers and the Spanish speakers, there is a little bit of a cultural difference if we go in that on that.
Mhm.
So we perceive the language barriers, the cultural expectations we have.
Mhm.
Um, and then now I'm talking about Latinos and Americans here from the United States. Okay. We're
Mhm.
talking about family dynamics and with our perceptions of discrimination. Yeah.
Mm.
And I know that it's a hard term. Yeah, it's a strong word, but there are many gaps in this area, and the feeling and the word we use to describe it is discrimination.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Um, so it sounds like we're talking about generational, right? Like one generation, you are the generation that immigrated, and then your children are growing up here in the US. They were born here in the US, maybe, or they could be just have been babies when they got here. And so then there's this conflict between what the way that you see and view the world, and then the way that your children see and view the world, and then the way that y'all relate together could be.
Yeah, yeah. And the
Yeah.
conflicts, they appear exactly in the communicational process. Yeah, so
Yeah.
in how my children will communicate and their ideas about myself from a different generation, and
Yeah.
who doesn't know well about this culture where they are uh, right now with
Yeah.
us. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like really about practicing empathy, but with this cultural lens that sometimes is
Hmm.
so hard for us as parents to do it.
Hmm.
And for sure, it's going to be very difficult for children and for teenagers, especially. Yeah, just
Hmm.
because of considering everything that it's based on life cycles and everything they need to experience just to get into their lives in the future as adults. So it's complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would imagine some measure of conflict would be kind of normal and natural. But how would somebody know if maybe their intergenerational conflict is to the level of needing professional help?
Yeah, I always see a few signs there are completely true. Like they're I can see them all in all the families that comes to my office, and also we have research about that. So we always see changes in the behavioral way that the family is showing, especially at home. Yeah, so usually escalating emotional distress. Yeah, so when you see a lot of kids or teenagers in our families, in our bicultural families, and it starts with lacking in communication, for example. You notice family tension is increasing. You notice that the cultural identity, pretty much like I'm an American and I don't follow what you are trying to tell me or what you are trying to teach me because this is about you. This is not about me. Yeah. So you see conflict families, you see this type of behavior, you see emotional stress, distress, all of that. I would say there are the majority of the main signs that, okay, we need to stop and we need to seek more help or at least try to communicate in a different way.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, so say I'm seeing that I need some help. Um, so I'm imagining most of the people who tuned in today are in this situation or know somebody in that situation. So if I'm a parent, well, I guess from a parent's perspective and then from maybe a teen or a young adult's perspective, what would be things that would be good to do if we're in this situation in our family?
Yeah, so these are things that I think they're good for us to do in every conflict situation, but in this situation, they are crucial to do. So we
Mm,
have to try to strengthen the communication. Uh, so parents, for example, I know that it's hard when we had, I don't know, very good experiences when we were raised, and we want to continue to pass this through our family generations. Yeah, like new generations teach the same things we were taught in the past. uh, but because we're talking about new teenagers or young men's and women that are very critical in thinking, the best way to do is always start to talk in a different way, start to try to communicate more closely, ask their opinions about things, really try to understand their point of view, share your experiences with them, ask them what they think you could be doing different, to show that you are in the same boat. Yeah, so it's pretty much like continue to exercise your parenthood, but be more open to new perspectives, because this
mhm,
is everything that we need coming here. We need to be opened to new perspectives from a new culture and also from our kids. Yeah, so this would be
yeah.
the best thing to do. And also always um, try to establish clear expectations with your son or daughter about certain situations. Yeah, probably we'll come back to this with the Q&A, but this is just a glimpse. One more thing, try to always, for us, negotiate our values with our children. Yeah, so if something is very important for us, we have to let them know why is this so important? Why is this part of our family foundation? Why do we want to keep doing this? So if they understand the importance of that, they probably will honor what we're talking about, and they probably will pair up with us.
Mhm. That sounds like it might be a lot of work on the part of a parent because I mean I can imagine. So say I have a value, I have something that I really, really want my kid to understand is important to me. But if I haven't ever had to explain why it's important to me, that sounds really difficult. So yeah, it would have to be like, well, I might have to ask, why is that even important to me? So I can share that with my kiddo to hopefully that help them to value it, right? It sounds, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is why I told you, I think this is useful for many situations when we talk about this communication in different generations. Yeah. But I think
Hmm.
for us, it's crucial, because if we don't do that, I think we're just going to follow different patterns in life. Yeah.
Hmm. So is there anything that we shouldn't do or we should avoid doing, both as parents and young people?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I would say one thing that we tend to do and we really need to try to avoid, is refrain from unilateral decisions. Yeah, so refrain from saying to our kids that, okay, I'm saying that because it is that, and because I'm saying you have to do it. Yes, like I think this is the completely opposite of what this generation, and especially here in the United States, they are educated to do. Yeah, so let's talk just a little bit about that. In our countries, yeah, so our past include listening to our elderly people, yeah, or parents or grandparents, and just obey, or if you are a little bit critical about that, always have respect. Yeah. Here in the United States, we learn the same things, but on top of that, they teach us to be more independent since kindergarten. Yeah.
Yeah.
They teach us to think critically about everything. And this is very good, I would say. But at the same time, it involves that the family needs to be completely aware about everything that is going on in terms of, okay, I know that this is the present for my son or my daughter, but I need to share why it's important for them also to consider it, our values and everything that I am bringing to this family too. Yeah, so they will exercise their critical thinking, but having something that it's valuable in their mindset. Yeah, so the parents needs, the parents, the grandparents, it's our job to pass this through, but with love and explaining, making the
Mm.
things reasonable to them. Yeah, so
Yeah. So saying because I said so is not a valid answer.
no, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, they need to have more of an explanation.
Yeah, and many little things too. Yes, like for example, I'm thinking in what I hear in my office. For example, in my country, it's normal when or it was at least, it was normal when a male was, I don't know, interested in a female and was going to approach the female or maybe kiss the female, depending on the circumstance, of course. But here I see that it's more, what happens the most is the girl is the one who takes the first step to show that she wants something more to happen with that boy. So a
Mhm.
lot of parents come to my office and ask, "Oh, is normal that my son is so quiet, is so calm, he doesn't do anything to this person that is showing interest to him?" And okay, there are cases and cases, but yes, here, I think since kindergarten, they are taught that they cannot do anything with the girl if the girl doesn't show that she really wants to have something with him. Yeah,
Mhm.
holding hands or a kiss. So it depends, and it's hard for us if we don't talk to our kids. We don't know, and we're gonna judge the kid. And it's not only that. Yeah, there is a lot
Mhm.
of rules, different expectations that are from here, and they probably don't know that the children, they don't know that it's different in another place, so they don't know what the parents are expecting uh,
Mhm.
about this behavior, right? So there has to be a lot of conversations about, I don't know, all of the topics, I would say.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. For the young people, is there something they should avoid?
For the young people, um, I think the hardest part for the younger people is they have to be able to express their opinions, but being respectful to the parents. Yeah. And
Mhm.
again, I think this is a general rule, but I say that it's, for us, it's a crucial rule. And just because there are many different settings of family arrangements. Yes. I tell this as a family therapist. Yeah. We see a lot of different dynamics that usually works more for bicultural families. For example, if we're talking about recent immigrants and they already brought their kids here, and we think in an older kid from this family, probably this older kid is going to be the one who's going to learn English better and faster. So we'll be the translator for the parents, will
Mhm.
be the translator for the younger brothers and sisters. This is gonna bring to this little child a lot of responsibility that probably if it was in the original country, he or she wouldn't have. Because of that, sometimes this teenager or this child just feels that something is not right. And because of that, because he's the one who gets the most power in the family because of the language, he disrespects or she disrespects, or so we're talking here about this communication with respect. Try to always open up to your parents and let them know what's happening. Why are you doing what you are doing? Because probably they never thought about it. They never were in this place before. Yeah? So I would say that respect, and try to always communicate with your parents the best way you can, like more openly.
That is such a good point. That is such a good point. What do you think people might fear regarding this topic?
Yeah. Okay. To ask this question, I'm gonna explain like just a little part of the acculturation process. Yeah, this is something we have to study, and it makes sense to explain the fears. Okay, so when we are new in a new culture, we deal with four phenomena that they are, because we are in a different environment, in a new culture, with a new language, new costumes, habits, expectations, and etc. So we can assimilate everything that this culture brings us. Yeah, so we start to speak in English, and we try to feel more comfortable with that. This is the assimilation process. Or we can feel integrated to the culture. And for some things, we're gonna speak in the language, but for example, in my home, I will continue to speak in Portuguese. Yeah, so I am doing an integration to this culture, okay? I can go with the third behavior, which is the separation. Yeah, there are many communities here, and especially here where we are in Texas. Yeah, here Spanish is the second most speak language here in so a lot of communities, they maintain themselves in their communities without learning anything about the American culture. Yeah, so they don't speak English. They are in this separation process, and they prefer to maintain their roots even here in a different country. And we have the fourth, which is the marginalization. Yeah, when I just feel completely lost and I don't want to deal with anything from my previous culture or this culture. Yeah, this is coming back with the fears. Yeah. So when we talk about fears, the normal fears are fears of not having, the parents fear that the children are not going to have any type of connection with the culture they were before. Yeah, so if I fear here that I don't know, my son and my daughter, for example, they will not know the importance of my favorite party, for example, my favorite holiday in Brazil was about St. Anthony. Yeah, and we had different parties, and it was in the middle of the year. They never had access to it because we don't celebrate this here in the United States. Yeah, so this is one of the first fears. It's about cultural erosion. We have another fear, very common, which is the fear of rejection. Yeah, so I explain and I have this open dialogue with my kids, but maybe they're going to prefer to just live in the American culture and not be part or not consider being a part of a Latino culture. So this is the second fear, very common. And the third, very common too, is a fear called the identity confusion. So it's because you really don't feel in one culture and sometimes nor in the other too. Yeah, so
Mhm.
there are a lot of studies in this area because when we feel confused to this point is usually when we feel stressed, when we deal with depression, anxiety, and other types of mental health issues.
Mhm. Yes, it's like you don't feel like you belong anywhere, some the confusion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
those
in,
fears.
I'm sorry, or in certain situations you feel that I belong in here, but in the other, in there, and you really don't feel anything concrete, but just always in the middle of something, you know?
Mhm. Those fears make a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what would somebody or some practical advice be for someone who notices that maybe a portion of their extended family is suffering from this conflict? Maybe their cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so I will always say, um, try try to seek more information about what's going on. Um, so it's it's kind of easy have access nowadays to material about cultural issues, about generational and cultural things, but I would always say for us, maybe ask for help, ask for professional help. If you go to a church, talk to your priest about that, talk to your spiritual director about that, because they always have a lot of education about these, especially if you are in areas that you have both communities, you have more than two communities sometimes. And today we're talking here about Latino families, but we also have a lot of other cultures in our daily lives. So I think we're here. I feel very trustful that we are very capable of manage this. So if you are seeing that these signs that we talk at the beginning of the presentation about communication, about anger, about ways to show, or the completely opposite, lack of communication. Uh, I would say the best thing is let's address it as a family first, and then let's look together for some information that it's there for us.
Great. Well, I'm mindful of the time. It's 12:35 now, and we typically at this time start our question and answer. So we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions and answers. We'll stop the recording.